Welcome to Sit Around the Fire, the podcast where we get to have honest conversation about what it takes to actually heal, to grow, and to come home to ourselves. I'm your host, Ashlea, and I've spent nearly a decade in emergency services as a firefighter and a paramedic before I became a licensed professional counselor and a clinical hypnotherapist. I've had the opportunity to sit with people on the worst day of their lives, whether it was out on the pavement, and I've sat with people in the quiet, private work of rewiring a nervous system that's been running on survival for decades. Here's what I've learned in both seats. You are not broken, you have been programmed, and what gets programmed can be reprogrammed. So pull up a chair and let's sit around the fire. I want to start today with a question. And I want you to actually answer it, not just let it slide past you. When was the last time that you invested in you? Not your kids, not your business, not the house, the car, the people who depend on you, you. Because most of us can rattle off every dollar and every hour we've poured into everything outside of ourselves. We can tell you about the retirement account, the emergency fund, the money we set aside for the people we love. We are excellent at investing in everything that isn't us. And then we wonder why we feel so depleted. We wonder why we're so stinking anxious. We're so exhausted. Why we keep hitting the same wall in our relationships, in our careers, and in our own heads. Here's the reframe I want to offer you today. Investing in yourself is not the luxury you get to once everything else is handled, once everything else is in line, once everything else is okay. It is the foundation everything else is built upon. It's the single highest return investment that you are ever going to make, and almost nobody actually treats it this way. So today we're going to talk about what that investment actually looks like. We're going to walk through these three arenas: therapy, coaching, and physical health. And I'm going to make the case from the neuroscience and from the lived experience that choosing yourself is not selfish. It is the most responsible thing that you will ever do. So let's start with why this is so stinking hard. Because if it were easy, you would already be doing it. Let's be honest. Most of us were programmed early on to believe that our worth is something we earn. By what we do for other people, by how we perform, we learned that being good meant being useful. That love was something we actually performed our way into. That putting ourselves last was a virtue, and putting ourselves first was actually selfish. And your brain, it took all of that information and it built a model, a framework out of it. And here's what I mean. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its number one job is to keep you safe and to conserve energy at all costs. And it does this by running on patterns it's already established and known. Neuroscientists call this the path of least resistance. The well-worn neural roads that fire automatically because you've traveled them 10,000 or more times in your life. The thought, I don't have time for myself. The reflex to say yes when you mean no. The guilt that floods in the second you do something just for you. Those are not character flaws. Those are grooves. Those are trails worn into the brain through repetition, and your nervous system treats them as safe simply because they are familiar to you. So when you try to choose yourself, your own biology actually pushes back. It registers the new behavior as a threat because it is unfamiliar, it's unknown, and that guilt that you feel when you rest, that's not proof that you're doing something wrong. That's just your old programming actually defending itself. I want you to hear that because It will change everything for you. The resistance you feel isn't a stop sign. It's a do not pass go. It's a sign you're at the edge of a pattern, which is exactly where change actually happens. So let's talk about the first arena here, therapy. Everyone loves to talk about therapy. When I was on the fireside, we had a saying, you don't train to the level of your worst day. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your own training. And the whole point of that repetition was that when the worst day came, your body would know what to do without you even having to think about it. The thing that nobody told us was that that same principle applies to your own inner world. The patterns you ran as a kid to survive in the environment you grew up in, that hypervigilance, the people pleasing, the shutting down, the armor, your body trained on those as well. And now, decades later, your system still falls to that level of training under stress. And we know that we are under stress a lot of the time. It runs the old play, even when the threat is long gone. That's what therapy is for. Therapy is the investment you make in understanding the programming so it stops running the show from the basement. It stops living your life for you. It stops allowing that 7-year-old in your mind to run your life. So much of what drives our lives is happening below this level of conscious awareness in the subconscious mind, in the body, in a nervous system that's making split-second decisions about whether or not you are safe before your thinking brain even gets a vote. Good quality therapeutic work brings that material up into the light where you can actually see it. And this is the beautiful, empowering part of this process. Your brain is neuroplastic. It's not fixed. It can lay down new pathways at literally any age because you can't reroute a road you can't see. So this investment, most people resist the longest because it doesn't have an obvious price tag attached to a shiny little object at the end. You don't walk out with things in your hands. What you walk out with is a different relationship to your own mind. You start to catch the pattern while it's happening instead of 3 days later. You start to feel your feelings instead of being run or overwhelmed by them. You become the person at the steering wheel instead of just the passenger at the will of the driver. I think of this as like a rudder of a ship. The rudder is small, it's underwater, nobody sees it, but it really does determine the entire direction of the vessel and the entire direction of where we're actually going. Therapy is the work you do on the rudder. And 1-degree correction on the rudder can change where you land on the other side of the ocean, literally. That is not an expense. That is the highest leverage repair you can ever make. Now, if therapy is the work of understanding where you've been and what's running you, coaching is the investment where you make in your path forward. Where are you actually going? Now, let's be clear about the distinction because this is coming up a lot. Therapy versus coaching, and what does this actually mean? And they're two different tools for two different jobs. Therapy tends to be rooted in the healing aspect, working with what happened, with the nervous system, with the patterns that formed in the past. Coaching is a forward-facing type focus. It's all about possibility. It's about building the future on purpose instead of just letting the old programming build it for you by default. Now, here's the neuroscience piece that I really love about this. Your brain doesn't just remember the past, it stimulates the future. It's constantly running predictions about what's coming up, preparing you for it, and most people are so unconsciously stimulating a future that's just a slightly upgraded version of their past. Because That's the data that their brain has on file. I call the alternative living from the future forward. Instead of letting who you've been dictate who you're becoming, you decide finally, with intention, who you are becoming, and you let that version inform the choices you make today. You start to embody them before all the external evidence is actually in play. That's really hard to do on your own, if we're really honest. Not because you're not capable, because you can't see your own blind spots, and because your brain will quietly steer you back towards the familiar every single time you're not paying attention. A coach is someone who is there, in their entire job around this is to reflect back the gap between what you say you want and what you're actually doing, to keep your hand on the rudder when the old currents will try to suck you back and pull you back in. This is the investment in momentum, in accountability, and not waiting another 5 years to finally become that person you know you could very much be. And the return on that, compounded over a life, it is almost impossible to overstate. And then there's the arena we really love to skip, even though it's the foundation under everything else: your own physical health. We're talking about your body here, folks. We treat the body like it's separate from the mind. In fun fact, it is not. You do not have a brain and a body. You have one complete integrated system that are all constantly in conversation with one another. Roughly 80% of the signaling from your vagus nerve travels from the body up to the brain, not the other way around. Your body is feeding your brain information about whether you're safe every single second of every day, and your brain is building its reality off of that, which means this: you cannot think your way into a calm mind while you are living in a dysregulated body. It is literally impossible. You can have the best insight in the world. You can have read all the books. You've gone to all the conferences. You have the clearest vision. And if your system is running on no sleep, chronic stress, and the gas pedal is pinned to the floorboard, your nervous system is going to keep filing threat reports, and your brain is going to keep believing them over and over and over again. So when I talk about physical health here, I'm not talking about it as a vanity performance type thing or one more thing that you need to worry about on your list of all the things to do. I'm talking about it as a nervous system support care. Sleep. Because your brain literally clears metabolic waste and it consolidates learning while you rest. Things like movement, because it's one of the fastest ways to discharge stress. Movement, because it's one of the fastest ways to discharge stress and signal safety to the body. Nourishment, so important because you cannot run on a regulated nourishment. So important here, you guys, because you cannot run a regulated system on empty. Breath, using the power of your breath, because it's one of the parts of the autonomic nervous system that you actually have direct conscious access to all the time. Think of it as the remote control to your own physiology. When you tend to the vessel, you raise your baseline for capacity for everything else. And we're talking everything else that happens in life. The therapy works better. The coaching sticks. You have more margin, more resilience, a wider window before you tip into overwhelm. You're no longer falling to the level of your worst day because you've built a body that can hold more. Now, taking care of your body is not separate from the inner work, although sometimes we feel like we do that. We separate it. It is the inner work. Taking care of your body is the inner work. It's the most concrete, most daily way you tell your own nervous system you are worth tending to. So let's bring this all home and put it in a nice little package for you. We understand compound interest when it comes to money. We understand that a small amount invested consistently over a long enough time horizon becomes something extraordinary. And that the most expensive thing you can do is wait. We just don't apply it to ourselves. But it's the exact same principle. Every session of real understanding, every conversation that holds your vision steady, every night of sleep, every walk, every breath you take on purpose with awareness, none of it looks like much in a given day. Yet all of it compounds. And here's the part I really want to hit for you today. You are the asset that produces every other return in your life. The quality of your parenting flows through your own regulation. The quality of your work flows through your clarity. The quality of your relationships follow through your capacity to stay present instead of always reacting. Everything you care about is a downstream of the state of your own system. So when you invest in yourself, you are not taking away from the people you love. Let's get this clear here and now, once and for all. You are increasing the value of the one asset all of them are actually depending upon. There is no version of this where you pour from an empty cup and everyone around you thrives. That's old, wrong thinking. That math has never worked, ever. This is why I say it is the most important investment you are ever going to make. Not because you matter more than everyone else, because you are the source. And a depleted source can't give anyone anything that actually is worth any kind of value. Choosing yourself is how everything else gets handled. So here's what I'll leave you with today. I want you to pick just one arena, only one. The understanding, the vision, or the vessel. Therapy, coaching, or your physical health. And I want you to make one investment this week. Not all three, don't be that person. Not a perfect plan, one. Just one thing. Because the resistance you feel isn't a stop sign, it's the edge of a pattern. And you get to choose right now whether you keep running on that old, crappy programming, the programming that's no longer serving you in the here and now, or whether you decide to finally lay down a new road. You have been investing in everyone else your entire life. It's time to put a little capital back into you. If this episode struck a chord for you, and you're feeling that pull to actually do the work, that now is the time, I am worth this investment, I want you to know that there is an open door for you. I work with people in a few different ways. On the clinical side, after the psychotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy for folks here in Colorado who are ready to get underneath the patterns and rewire them at the root. But I also offer one-on-one coaching for those clients inside and outside of Colorado. For those of you who are ready to stop running the old story and to start living from the future forward. Whether you need to understand where you've been or you want to build where you're going, there's a path for you here. And you don't have to figure out which one. That's what the first conversation is for. You can find everything, the show, the resources, and how to work with me at sitaroundthefire.org and at ashleadiller.com. Come find me, reach out. Let's talk about what investing in you could actually look like. If this episode meant something to you, do me a favor and share it with one person who needs to hear it today. That is how this fire spreads. Thank you for sitting around the fire with me today. Remember that you are worth it, that you are loved, that you are incredibly valued. and that you are worthy of investing in yourself. And I will see you next time.